And the reason why nightlife can function as that animal kingdom style competition is because nightlife is often anonymous. Because if all the animals at the watering hole knew each other on a first name basis, then it would be more difficult to attack each other for personal or social gain. Like that lion attacking that gazelle is premised upon the fact that that lion doesn't know that gazelle. So that anonymity is required for that mutual antagonism and competition we find in nightlife. Nightlife used to comprise more of local neighborhood taverns where everybody knows your name, so to speak, to quote the intro theme from Cheers, an old TV show. But the increased anonymity of urban life dissolves community ties and that social solidarity, instead fostering a sense of distrust and competitive aggression among strangers. Many downtown restaurants and bars and nightclubs, cocktail lounges, and music venues function as anonymous worlds of strangers where patrons lack any strong sense of social solidarity with one another. And it's this anonymity that drives and allows for competition. Because, as with the watering hole example, if you knew everyone in a bar personally on a first name basis, you'd be less likely to be inclined to compete with them or do anything to sabotage them or undermine them for your own personal gain. And you may feel this when you're like at a concert or a nightclub or something and you're looking around at other people and you make eye contact with someone and you kind of like, it's almost like this mutual suspicion, this mutual distrust, as if there's this very low lying, latent antagonism in the room. So, like I said, nightlife in small towns was very different because the town was small enough that everyone could get to know each other. And at night, they drop into their local tavern, and everyone they see at that bar, they'll already know from their everyday lives. So they'll walk in and they'll be familiar with everyone, like, "Hey, how's your wife? How are your kids doing? How's work going?" Whereas in contemporary urban city life, there are so many people coming in and out of a big city like Vancouver. You can't possibly make and maintain contact with everyone in that city the same way people in small towns can. In a small town, someone could literally stop and chat with every person they meet as they go about their everyday life. But imagine trying to do that going about your everyday life in Vancouver. Imagine stopping every single person you walk by on the street and say, "Hey, I want to form a relationship with you. Tell me about your spouse and your work life and your family." They would probably just blow right past you and keep walking. You'd lose your own sanity trying to maintain that many social contacts in a city of hundreds of thousands of people. So as a result, it forms this paradox where even though we're in contact with way more people on an everyday basis, it's a matter of quantity over quality, where we don't make any attempt to form any sort of bond with any of these people. So that you could be in a sea of thousands of people and you'll feel very isolated and disconnected from anyone. And you can see this in how often and how frequently people are wearing headphones and just listening to music or a podcast, just in their own worlds as they're surrounded by people on the street or a bus or a train, so that our contact with others is fleeting and very low quality compared to those small town, close knit networks of relationships, to the point where we don't even often get to know our neighbors and we treat them with indifference as with any other stranger on the street. This is why city folk often appear to small town folk as being very cold and uncongenial and unfriendly, because proximity can breed contempt, so that being in that constant contact with all of these strangers can kind of foster a sense of mutual antagonism and default defensiveness as one's automatic stance towards others. So that during nightlife, we tend to treat others as if they're anyone outside of our friend circles are treated as potential enemies or competitors or threats, which is why conflict can and does erupt so easily among patrons of nightlife establishments. So people at nightclubs get into fights with each other for very silly reasons, purely because of that latent antagonism. So if your friend who you're on a first name basis with accidentally spills their drink on you, you're gonna say, "No worry, they didn't mean it." But if a stranger spills a drink on you, then all bets are off because you're already on unsteady footing by being strangers, by being drunken strangers. It's such a competitive nightlife environment, and that one thing is enough to erupt into a full fledged fight. Even when nightlife consumers do go out, it's usually in pre existing groups within their circle of friends without much intermingling outside of their comfort zone, effectively eschewing that carnivalesque sense of unity with all others in favor of more of an echo chamber that reinforces what's already known, what's already familiar. So nightlife, like I said, is supposed to be extending beyond yourself. But if you spend that entire time with just people you already know and are familiar with and comfortable with, and you stick with them during the pregame, and you stick with them at the bar, and you stick with them on the way home, then who else did you interact with? And you're kind of just staying in this mobile fortress of solitude where technically you're going out, but you're also staying in the sense that you're staying in that circle of friends. And again, this is because the rest of the city, the rest of nightlife is so anonymous and potentially foreboding and even dangerous. So people feel comfortable going out in groups and mostly just socializing with their own groups as kind of support and isolation or insulation from the anonymity and potential dangers of city nightlife.